Deep inside a French cave, archaeologists found footprints that had not been touched in over 12,000 years. They belonged to a child, walking barefoot through total darkness, almost a full kilometer from the entrance. No sunlight has ever reached that spot, not once in the entire history of that cave system. So why would a Stone Age child walk that far into blackness, past every instinct telling them to turn back? For most of human history, caves were treated as dangerous places, full of predators, cave-ins, and disorientation. Yet the deeper, emptier, and more silent a cave became, the more some ancient humans seemed drawn to it. Later in this video, I will explain what researchers believe was happening in the darkest chambers of these caves. I will also show you why empty, silent spaces may have shaped early human belief and ritual. And by the end, you will understand why this ancient fear of darkness still lives inside your own body today. This is the strange, largely forgotten story of what our ancestors were really doing in the dark. Modern archaeology has completely changed how we think about the relationship between early humans and caves. For a long time, people assumed cave paintings were made near entrances, close to light and safety. New surveys of European caves show something very different, and honestly much stranger than expected. Some of the most detailed prehistoric art sits over 1,000 meters from the nearest natural light. Researchers have to use modern headlamps and rope systems just to reach the chambers where this art survives. That means the original artists worked entirely by the light of small torches or animal fat lamps. They chose to travel that far into total darkness, carrying fire, ochre, and tools, deliberately and repeatedly. This single fact forces us to ask a bigger question about why humans feared, yet still entered empty caves. There's something even stranger almost nobody talks about when it comes to these deep cave chambers. The art found closest to cave entrances is often simple, quick, and repeated many times over centuries. The art found deepest inside, farthest from daylight, tends to be more detailed, complex, and carefully placed. This pattern suggests that depth itself was meaningful, not just a random side effect of exploration. Anthropologists call spaces like this liminal, meaning they sit on the threshold between one state and another. A liminal space is neither fully one thing nor another, like a doorway between two different worlds. In many hunter-gatherer societies, thresholds like this were treated as spiritually powerful and dangerous at the same time. Imagine a small group gathered at the mouth of a cave, torches burning low against the evening air. An elder steps forward first, testing the passage, while the younger members wait nervously near the entrance. One by one, they follow the flickering light deeper, leaving the familiar world of sky and trees behind. The deeper they walk, the more their voices fall to whispers, swallowed by rock and absolute silence. This is not simply a group exploring a cave, but very likely a ritual crossing into another kind of reality. Modern sensory deprivation research helps explain why total darkness affects the human brain so powerfully and so quickly. Without any light, sound, or familiar landmarks, the brain begins generating its own internal visual patterns. Scientists call these entoptic phenomena, meaning shapes and lights the mind creates from within the eye and brain itself. People in modern trance or deprivation studies often report seeing spirals, grids, tunnels, and shifting geometric patterns. Archaeologist David Lewis Williams proposed that many abstract cave symbols directly mirror these known entoptic visual patterns. If ancient humans experienced the same effects, deep caves may have felt like doorways into another reality entirely. But here's what most people don't realize about how ancient societies likely used that altered state deliberately. In many documented shamanic traditions, controlled darkness, isolation, and sensory limits are used to trigger trance states on purpose. A shaman is a spiritual specialist believed to travel between the physical world and unseen spiritual realms. Prolonged darkness, rhythmic drumming, chanting, or fasting can all help bring on these altered states of consciousness. If Paleolithic humans understood even a basic version of this, deep caves become far more than shelters. They become deliberately chosen locations for spiritual work, exactly because they were disorienting, empty, and completely silent. This reframes the fear itself, since fear and reverence often travel together in ritual and religious practice. Many rites of passage, meaning ceremonies marking a major change in someone's life, use fear as a tool. A rite of passage might mark a child becoming an adult or a person entering a new social role. Forcing someone to face darkness, isolation, or danger has been used across cultures to create a lasting inner transformation. Think about the footprints mentioned earlier, left by a child walking barefoot deep into that ancient French cave. Some researchers now suggest those footprints may represent an early form of an initiation journey into adulthood. The child was not lost or wandering, but very possibly being guided through a deliberate rite of passage. Facing an empty cave, with all its silence and total darkness, may have symbolized facing fear itself directly. Surviving that walk and returning to daylight could have marked a powerful and memorable turning point in that child's life. There's another layer to this story that connects fear of caves to something even older and more primal. Long before modern humans, cave bears used many of the same cave systems as dens for winter hibernation. Cave bears were massive animals, some far larger than modern brown bears, and extremely dangerous if encountered. Early humans entering a cave never knew for certain whether a bear was sleeping in the darkness ahead. This very real, physical danger likely shaped a deep and lasting instinctive fear of dark, enclosed spaces in general. Some archaeologists have even proposed a cave bear cult, where bear skulls were deliberately arranged in certain caves. This theory remains debated, and not every cave with bear remains shows clear evidence of intentional human arrangement. Still, the overlap between real physical danger and spiritual significance likely reinforced how seriously these spaces were treated. A cave that could kill you with a hidden predator was also treated as a place demanding deep respect. That combination of real danger and symbolic weight helps explain why empty caves became powerful cultural landmarks. But here's the thing that modern science is only now beginning to properly measure and understand. Our fear of darkness and enclosed spaces is not simply learned from stories or childhood experiences alone. Researchers studying human vision and evolution note that humans rely far more heavily on sight than most predators. Losing that sense entirely, as happens in a deep cave, removes our primary way of detecting danger around us. This creates a very real physical stress response, even in modern humans standing in a completely safe location. Heart rate rises, breathing quickens, and the brain becomes hyper-alert, scanning for threats it cannot actually see. In other words, the same biological fear response likely triggered inside ancient humans still exists inside you today. When you feel a chill walking into a dark basement, you are echoing a response tens of thousands of years old. Ancient humans did not simply overcome that fear by accident, but very likely learned to use it intentionally. By walking into darkness with purpose, guided by ritual, elders, and shared belief, fear became a tool for meaning. This is very different from mindless bravery, and closer to what modern psychologists call controlled exposure. Controlled exposure means facing a feared situation gradually, and often intentionally, in order to build resilience over time. Ancient rites built around caves may represent one of the earliest known versions of this psychological practice. There's something even stranger almost nobody talks about, and it involves how these caves were physically organized. Researchers mapping several major European cave systems have noticed a consistent difference between outer and inner zones. Outer zones, close to daylight, often show signs of everyday activity, like cooking, tool making, and general living. Inner zones, deep in total darkness, show almost no evidence of daily life, only art, footprints, and deliberate markings. This strongly suggests that ancient humans understood these as two very different kinds of space, used for different purposes. The outer cave was for living, while the inner cave was set apart, almost like an ancient sacred chamber. Many world religions still preserve this same basic pattern, separating ordinary daily space from a specially set-apart sacred space. A modern place of worship often includes an inner sanctuary that only certain people may enter, and only at certain times. Seen this way, the deepest, emptiest chamber of a prehistoric cave may be one of humanity's earliest known sanctuaries, that reframes an empty, dark chamber from simply an absence of things into a deliberately meaningful kind of space. Emptiness itself, in many ancient traditions, was not seen as nothing, but as a space full of potential meaning. Oral tradition, meaning knowledge and stories passed down by speaking rather than writing, likely carried these cave meanings forward. Elders may have told younger generations exactly which chambers to enter, which to avoid, and why it mattered. Without written language, these stories became the map that kept cultural memory of the caves alive for generations. Over thousands of years, some of that original meaning was likely lost, reshaped, or replaced by newer beliefs. But traces of it may still survive in folklore about caves as entrances to underworlds, or homes of spirits. Many cultures across the world independently developed myths describing caves as doorways between the living and the dead. This is a powerful piece of evidence, since separate cultures rarely invent nearly identical ideas without some shared underlying cause. That shared cause may simply be the universal human experience of standing in total darkness, deep underground, alone. Let's bring all of these threads back together and look at the full picture one more time. Ancient humans feared empty caves for very real, practical reasons, including hidden predators and the danger of getting lost. At the same time, that same darkness created powerful psychological effects that felt spiritual, mysterious, and deeply significant. Deep cave art, found far from any natural light, shows deliberate, repeated journeys into these disorienting inner chambers. Footprints like the ones found in that French cave suggest these journeys may have marked rites of passage. Sensory deprivation in total darkness likely triggered altered mental states, similar to those described in shamanic traditions worldwide. The layout of outer and inner cave zones mirrors the sacred and ordinary spaces found in religions today. Fear, in this context, was not something ancient humans simply avoided, but something they learned to walk directly into. That walk into darkness may have been one of humanity's earliest tools for transformation, meaning, and shared belief. The next time you feel uneasy in a dark, empty room, remember that this feeling has a very ancient history. Your ancestors felt it too, and instead of only running from it, some of them chose to walk forward. That choice, made deep underground tens of thousands of years ago, still echoes quietly inside your own nervous system. If the story of ancient caves and forgotten human rituals made you see darkness a little differently, consider subscribing for more. There are many more forgotten practices from our ancestors waiting to be uncovered in future videos on this channel. If you found this exploration into prehistoric belief and ritual interesting, a like helps this kind of history reach more people. Share this with someone who loves ancient history, human origins, or the strange, hidden wisdom of the deep past.